Okay, hello, and welcome to this recording where I will talk about the content of Ethics 1 and what do we study in Ethics 1, why does it matter, what to expect, and so on. So this is actually already introduction to the course, and I want to start very early because sometimes things take some time to settle in our minds, and that's just part of the learning process. Okay, so let's dive in. So this is our first question: why study ethics? And apart from required kasi, bahagi ng GE curriculum ninyo na kuhanin itong Ethics 1. Kaya kung isang pilosopong sagot sa bakit ba natin pinag-aaralan to, kasi required, yun ang sagot. But one other uh, version of this question is, what is this for and what are we doing? And I think one good version of the question, why study ethics, is what's the most constructive way to approach learning in this course? Ano ba yung pinaka-produktibo dito na magagawa natin? Ipapaliwanag ko rin itong imahe na ginagamit ko para sa kurso natin, itong imahe ng mga iba't ibang gamit. So we see uh, a toolbox. Kasi ang pinag-uusapan talaga natin dito sa kurso natin, kung paano kayo turuan na magkaroon ng mga kagamitan para mas lalong mapag-isipan ng tama at mali. So, it's not that I'm teaching you how to be ethical. Of course, if you pick up something on how to be ethical from the readings and from the lectures and from the modules, I'll be very happy. But I'm not going to teach you how to be ethical because you already know that. I will say something very what I think is very obvious but may not be obvious to you. You already have a sense of right and wrong. You would not be here, you would not be in college, you would not be in UP taking these courses if you did not have a sense of right and wrong, because a person who does not have a sense of right and wrong gets into all sorts of trouble. So, bakit pa natin kailangan pag-aralan sa formal na paraan kung alam naman na natin kung ano ang pagkakaiba ng tama at mali? So, yun yung konteksto ng bakit ba natin pinag-aaralan to. Ang unang sagot ko, kasi yung kung anong meron na tayo bago natin pag-aralan yung Ethics 1 o kung ano pa mang kurso na medyo ganito, our sense of right and wrong, the sense of right and wrong that you already have, it is in need of further clarification, of sharpening, and this is what you need the tools for. So, meron dalawang pinanggagalingan yung pag-isip natin tungkol sa tama at mali. Tatawagin kong intuition yung isa. Ipapaliwanag ko kung ano yung ibig sabihin nun ko nun sa pamamagitan ng katagang yon. At saka ipapaliwanag ko rin yung folk morality. So the sense of right and wrong that you have comes from both intuition and folk morality. Hindi mutually exclusive, magkadikit at may ugnayan itong intuition at folk morality. So unahin natin yung intuition. Yung intuition, yung automatic, halos hindi malinaw sa kamalayan natin na pinipili natin. Pero pagka nangyari sa karanasan natin na may nakita tayo, halimbawa may isang taong binabastos ng isa pang tao, sumasama ang loob natin. Sinasabi natin, mali yun. Pagka may nakita tayo na isang bata o isang inosenteng tao na biglang sinuntok na lang o hinampas o sinaksak ng isa pang tao, merong pagtuon sa kalooban natin na hindi maganda yon, hindi tama yon. So yun yung tinutukoy ko, ang intuition. At kadalasan, pagka naging conscious tayo, pag nakita natin, oh, okay, nangyayari pala yan sa kalooban ko. Pag nakakita ko ng ganun, sumasama loob ko, naiisip ko, lumalabas sa isip ko yung pangungusap na masama yun. Hindi yun mabuti. Natutuwa tayo na meron tayong ganong sense, that we have that moral sense, a sense of right and wrong. We say it's only right that we have that sense because it's really wrong to inflict needless harm, especially on innocent people, especially if there's no reason, right? Now, that intuition, you may not be aware of it, that intuition has a biological basis. And because we're talking about biology, it also has behind it a deep evolutionary past. Hindi ko mapapag-usapan lahat ng mga detalyeng yon. Kung interesado kayo, pwede natin pag-usapan. Pwede ko yung bigyan ng mga babasehin kung interesado kayo doon. Pero ipapakita ko na itong intuition na sinasabi ko. Meron kayo nito, meron ako nito, halos lahat ng tao sa mundo meron nito. Bata yan sa biolohiya ng tao na mga tao na matatawag nating primates, so humans are primates, and this intuition, this tendency to find certain things repulsive is something we share with non-human primates like apes, chimpanzees, and bonobos. So yung sinasabi ko, may biological basis ito. Isa sa mga paraan na napatunayan ng mga tao, ng mga researcher at mga scientists, itong sinasabi ko, pinag-aralan nila yung tugon ng mga tao sa dalawang scenario na I'm sure na sigurado akong narinig nyo na. So I'm talking about the trolley experiment. So I'm sure you've heard about it. Sobrang dami ng memes tungkol dito. So yung unang scenario, may nagsasangang riles ng tren. Tapos may isang trolley o may isang tren na out of control, hindi mapigil, papunta dun sa sanga ng tren na may 5 inosenteng tao. Pagka wala kang ginawa, pupunta yung runaway trolley or train doon at mamamatay ang 5 tao. Sa tabi mo, may isang parang cambio, may lever na pagka hinila mo, if you pull the lever, lilipat yung runaway trolley or train dun sa kabilang sanga na meron isang tao lang. Mamamatay rin siya. Kaya lang, pag inisip natin, again, using our like intuitions or gut responses, our gut intuition and there's calculation behind it is this. 5 deaths is worse than 1 death. Of course, the death of 1 innocent person is a very bad thing. But if we weigh that against 5 deaths, that's less bad. Right? So, pwede, kung first time nyo narinig itong scenario na ito, pwede nyo tanongin yung gut reaction, hindi ko masyadong iniisip, no judgment, ano yung response ko? Will I pull the lever? Will I not pull the lever? Now, people did an experiment on this across different populations, different socioeconomic groups, different genders, different regions in the world, and so on. Lahat ng pwede mong maisip na demographic variability, tinest nila yon. Nakita nila na 9 out of 10 people say they will pull the lever. Kasi nga yung intuition na 5 deaths is worse than 1 death. Okay. So nakita natin, una, meron tayong intuitions. Pangalawa, may overlap o may pagkakasundo doon sa kung ano yung nilalaman ng intuition na yon. Pull the lever in this particular scenario. So this scenario is a thought experiment. It's not lifelike. It's a literal intuition pump. So it's designed to bring to the surface certain intuitions that people have. Now, the other very similar thought experiment is, and these thought experiments were designed by a philosopher called Philippa Foot. The other involves a footbridge, yung tinatawag natin mga Pilipino na overpass. So, walang nagsasangang riles ng tren, isang riles lang, nakatayo ka sa ibabaw ng overpass, sa tabi mo may isang malaking tao, Tapos, ayun na naman, may runaway trolley, walang preno, papunta sa 5 inosenteng tao. Pag wala kang ginawa, mamamatay yung 5 yon. Ngayon, ang tanong, itutulak mo ba yung malaking mama sa tabi mo para hindi mamatay yung 5? Kasi dito sa scenario nito, maliit ka, siya malaking malaki siya, parang sa laki niya, hihinto yung trolley, yung runaway trolley or train. Mamamatay siya. Pero kung titingnan natin yung first scenario, 5 deaths is worse than 1 death. Parang ganun. Parang hindi ganun yung karanasan na dumarating sa mga tao pagka pinresinta sa kanila itong senaryo na to. So again, pwede nyo tanongin yung sarili nyo kung unang beses nyo narinig itong scenario or thought experiment na ito. Tinanong sa maraming tao, again, across demographic groups, very systematically investigated, proper sample size, etc., etc. The finding was that 9 out of 10 people say they will not push the large guy. Hindi nila papabayaan mamatay yung malaking mama sa tabi nila. Actually, people's reactions were very strong in emotional terms, and people were scandalized for the most part. They were saying, hindi ko yung gagawin. Bakit ko yung gagawin? Tutulak ko siya, hawakan ko siya, makikita ko yung mukha niya, mahulog siya doon. Tapos mamatay siya dahil may ginawa ako. Tapos nasa katabi ko siya, nakasalamuha ko siya, baka kinausap ko pa siya. Tapos hayaan ko lang dahil mas masama na 5 tao ang mamatay kesa isa lang. Okay. So the third thing that we discover is that our intuitions are in conflict, or at least they don't always go in the same direction. So what do we need philosophical tools for? To make a systematic and hopefully better decision on what to do with the intuitions that we already have. So that's what we need the philosophical theories for. So pag-aaralan natin yung systematikong pag-iisip na binigay sa atin ng mga pilosopo na paano ba natin pag-iisipan to ang tama at mali. Hindi yung basta dumating lang sa atin dahil dun sa kung ano tayo, tao tayo, nabubuhay tayo sa lipunan, namubuhay tayo na may mga kasama na related sa atin, na kapwa-tao. Pero masisimating ang pag-iisip, paano natin yun lalapitan? So, the tools that we are learning, that we will learn, are directed towards answering questions like that. So, intuitions interact with another thing called folk morality. Folk morality is the sense of right and wrong, morality, that you absorb from your family, from your community, from your linguistic group. Kahit na yung salita na ginagamit natin sa tama at mali, meron na yung binibigay sa atin. Halimbawa, sa Filipino, pagka gumawa ng masama, minsan sabihan ka ng nanay mo, kaya ng tatay mo, kaya ng lola mo, huwag mong gawin yan, hindi maganda. So yung kabutihan naging parang physical na attractive, hindi maganda. Pangit yung ganyang ugali. So in English, they don't use good and bad, right and wrong in that way. It's not phrased or conceptualized in terms of beauty. Yun yung sabihin na maganda, di ba? Nobody says in English, don't do that, it's ugly. Right? Nobody says that. So, yung folk morality, yung tama at mali na minana natin sa kung saan tayo pinanganak, sino yung naging magulang natin, ano yung relihiyon kung meron man na itinuro sa atin ng magulang at lipunan, kung sino yung mga naging influential sa lipunan ginagalawan natin, may sinabi rin sila, meron silang sinasabi o influensya sa kung ano iniisip ng tao sa tama at mali. Now, folk morality is something we don't choose. We don't choose that. We don't choose which family to be born to, what language to speak, etc., etc. So one of the other things that I will point to is that the tools that we will learn about will help us systematically think about right and wrong. And in learning that, we may also be empowered or enabled to make a deliberate choice on what kind of what kind of morality, what kind of moral code we choose for ourselves. Hindi yung aksidente na ipinanganak ako dito, ganito ako mag-isip. ganito na yung tama at mali para sa akin, hindi na yun magbabago. Pagka gano'n yung inisip mo natin, parang walang kalayaan na kahit ano. Parang basta dinidiktahan ka lang ng aksidente ng kung saan ka pinanganak at kung ano yung naituro na o naituro na sa'yo o natutunan mo na. So why study ethics? It's because we want to think more systematically about our intuitions, make informed choices, and go beyond folk morality. Kasi itong folk morality may mga problema diyan. May mga natutunan tayong maganda, may mga natutunan tayong hindi maganda. Sa mga tatalakayan ko sa susunod, yung utang na loob. Minana natin yan sa kultura natin dito sa Pilipinas. May magandang bahagi yung utang na loob. Meron ding masamang bahagi. Minsan masyadong obvious sa mga tao yung masamang o hindi magandang bahagi ng utang na loob. So alin doon yung palalaguin natin at bakit? Alin doon yung hindi natin papayagang mawala sa sarili natin, sa lipunan natin at bakit? So the tools that we will learn will help us answer these questions. Right? Next week, pag-uusapan ko itong pangalawang point dito. Also, when we learn about these tools, these ethical theories, or these tools from the ethical theories, it will also help us manage disagreement with others better. Okay, sa module 1, mas pag-uusapan iyan. Pangatlo, kasi may iba't ibang paraan para pag-usapan yung sense of right and wrong. You can actually investigate morality from an evolutionary perspective, from a scientific perspective, like the biological basis of morality, like the areas of the brain that gets activated when people make a moral judgment. Inimbestigahan ng mga scientist yan. Pwede mo rin pag-usapan yung sense of right and wrong batay sa sociology o kasaysayan. Kung pagka tinitignan mo yung sense of right and wrong, tama at mali sa punto de vista ng kasaysayan, ng sosyolohiya, at saka ng agham, mas nakadikit yon sa description. So tinatawag na, okay, ganito, this is how things came to be. Evolutionary stories are like that, right? Sociological and historical stories tell us how things are or how things were. So we are, ganito tumubo yung pag-isip tungkol sa utang na loob. Halimbawa, kaya lang pagkatapos nating himayin at imbestigahan at sabihin, okay, ganito umusbong yung pag-isip tungkol sa tama at mali. Darating tayo sa punto na hindi na lang tayo tumutukoy o naglalarawan kung ano yung nangyari. Hindi na descriptive. Meron na tayong tanong tungkol sa tinatawag ng mga pilosopo na action guidance. Anong gagawin natin sunod? Okay, ganyan. Ganyan tayo nag-evolve. Social animal tayo. Okay. Meron tayong concern for conspecifics, yung mga kapwa na parang tayo, same species at saka yung medyo mas malapit sa atin, nakikita natin na nakakaranas ng paghirap. So we recognize beings that experience pain, and it seems bad to let them experience that needlessly, like animals. So the question in philosophy is this: how do we bring all those descriptive pictures together in a manner of synthesis so that we can figure out what to do? We can guide action for ourselves, for other people in our community, and so on. Right? So ganyan yung mga tanong natin at saka ganyan yung timpla ng usapan natin. Okay, gusto kong pag-usapan ng konti pa yung folk morality at isang pananaw tungkol sa tama at mali na nakukulong lang daw ang tama at mali sa folk morality at iba't iba at walang batayan, parang aksidente lang lahat ng folk morality. Okay, yun yung unang sunod natin pag-uusapan. Gagamitin ko yung teksto nitong pilosopong ito, si Mary Midgley, yung pamagat nung isang chapter ng isang libro niya, Trying Out One's New Sword, yun yung tatalakayin ko. Merong optional activity tungkol sa napakagandang tekstong ito. Hindi man masyado mahaba. Hindi rin, sa palagay ko, hindi rin masyado mahirap basahin. Kaya baka masilip nyo at kagaya ng sinabi ko, may optional activity tungkol dito. Pinag-usapan ni Mary Midgley ay tungkol sa moral judgment. Okay. Itong katagang ito, it's a phrase. Moral judgment is something we don't like. We don't like judgy people. We think we should avoid judgment because judgment is like condemning others, thinking we're better than them, thinking about them in a kind of probably malicious way, making ourselves feel better because we think we're superior to them, whatever. Moral judgment is just associated with all these things, right? So, sabi ni Mary Midgley, yes, a lot of people don't like moral judgment. So, a lot of people would like to completely avoid moral judgment. Does that work? By the way, in the way she discusses it, complete avoidance of moral judgment translates to what we can also call moral relativism. That moral judgment is always indexed on a particular culture, a particular group of folk. Kasi yung folk morality, ibig sabihin may isang tribo na ganun sila mag-isip, ganun sila mamuhay, lahat ng sinasabi nila tungkol sa tama at mali, nauugat sa kung anong ginagawa nila dun sa tribo na yon, kung paano sila mabuhay, etc. Right? So walang kahulugan yung tama at mali sa labas ng partikular na tribo o mga grupo. Kaya yung moral judgment na yan na parang universal, na parang panglahat sa sangkatauhan, walang ganon. So, ito yung challenge, ito yung issue na pinag-usapan ni Mary Midgley at meron siyang napakagandang halimbawa na tinatalakay. So it's a very specific example of a cultural practice. So yung halimbawa ni Mary Midgley is about samurai Japan. Kaya may imahin ako ng samurai dito. So wala nang ganito. Matagal nang walang ganito. So it's hundreds of years ago. Meron din tayong distance from it so we can maybe discuss it a little less heatedly and using what philosophers call reflective distance. So in samurai Japan, they have this word tsujigiri. Ano ang English translation ng katagang yan? Tsujigiri. Yung English translation, yun yung pamagat ng papel ni Mary Midgley. Ang ibig sabihin ng tsujigiri, trying out one's new sword. Yun ang ibig sabihin. Tsujigiri is a practice of the samurai when they have a newly crafted sword and they have to make sure that the sword is sharp enough. So the Japanese samurai play a very important role in society of that period. The samurai class is a warrior class immediately under the emperor, and they perform a very important function for the whole society. And they have, we know this from like the stereotype of the Japanese personality, that they have a very specific and very rigid and very clear standard for certain things. So ganun din yung sharpness of the sword. The sword of the samurai has to be very sharp. Very sharp means it can cut a person in half in one clean stroke. So yun ang ibig sabihin ng sharp enough. Kayang hatiin ng isang tao ng one clean stroke. Of course, the samurai are skilled swordsmen. And they know how to handle the blade, and so they swing it, the samurai, and the cut is going from one shoulder to the opposite waist, so diagonal. So it's a diagonal cut. Siyempre, kung yung samurai ay minana lang niya yung ginagamit niya sa iba pang samurai na ginamit na yun dati at nakipaglaban at inalagaan naman yung talas nung sword na yun, alam niya na matalas yun. It's sharp enough, right? But if the samurai has a new sword, of course, even if the blacksmith or whoever makes a sword is very reliable and talented and has produced a lot of swords before, that particular one has to be tested. So kailangan i-testing. Is it sufficiently sharp? So they have this practice of testing the new sword on a random stranger. Kaya sila may salitang ganyan, tsujigiri. So ang ibig sabihin ng tsujigiri, ang samurai, meron siyang bagong sword. May isang tao galing sa kabilang village kabilang baryo, naglalakad siya, kita siya ng samurai, yung samurai may bagong sword, mamamatay yung taong naglalakad na yun kasi susubukan siyang hatiin ng samurai. If the sword is sharp enough, the stranger, yung taong naglalakad ay mamamatay ay dahil mahahati siya sa dalawa. Pero sa palagay ko, kahit na hindi sharp enough yung sword, mamamatay pa rin siya. Kasi this is a very violent strike. So, when I tell that story, I'm pretty sure that for most of you, this is the first time you're hearing about it. If you kind of look inward and listen to what's going on in your mind's eye or in your consciousness, you will most likely detect horror at what they did, and shock and possibly disgust that they weighed the sharpness of a sword versus the life of an innocent person and found the importance of the sharp sword to be weightier than the value of an innocent person. So, may dalawang tugon dito sa Atsujigiri ng Samurai Japan. Una, horror. It seems like negative justice. Oh my gosh. Parang bakit ganun? Hindi maganda yon. So that's the initial response. Tapos, pagkatapos nun, almost almost instantly, the next thing, and sometimes you don't even detect this, pero sa palagay ko, sa halos lahat ng tao, pagkaunang inilahad sa kanila itong mga ginagawa ng mga Hapon hundreds of years ago, there's this horror. And then there's this response. Wait, teka muna. Hindi ako dapat magulat masyado. Hindi ko dapat sila hatulan kasi hindi naman ako Hapon. Hindi naman ako Samurai Japan. So ayoko magpataw ng pag-iisip ko sa kanila. They belong to a different culture. I belong to my culture. I cannot impose on them. So, hindi ko dapat pintasan, hindi ko dapat hatulan kung ano yung ginagawa nila. Kung ano yung ginawa nila. Kasi tapos na, wala nang ganon. Hindi na to ginagawa. Matagal nang walang ganito. Okay. Tapos, ang susunod dito, we belong only to our own culture. So, we must not criticize other cultures if we must, and we belong only to our culture, right? Then we cannot compare, we cannot make a judgment about our own culture where we make a comparison. Kasi nga, parang trap tayo. Kaya moral isolationism yung tawag ni Mary Midgley sa moral relativism. Parang sinasabi mo na ang isang kultura ay isang closed loop. Pwede ka lamang gumalaw doon sa kultura mo. Pwede mong pag-isipan yung ginagawa nyo doon sa kultura mo. Pero kung bawal mong silipin kung ano yung nasa kabila, kung ano yung ginagawa ng mga tao sa ibang kultura, wala kang batayan ng paghahambing. Kung wala kang batayan ng paghahambing, hindi mo mahahatulan sa paraan na produktibo na pwede mo masabi, teka, mas maganda yung ginagawa nila. Or mas maganda yung ginagawa natin kaysa sa kanila. So dapat itong mas magandang ginagawa natin, palakasin natin to. At saka palawakin natin yung epekto niyan. Di ba? So, sinasabi ni Mary Midgley, pagka pumunta tayo doon sa paraan ng pag-iisip na di natin pwedeng hatulan ang mga ginagawa ng ibang kultura, nawawalan tayo ng isang mahalagang bagay. Ang isang mahalagang bagay na yon, yung paghahambing. Paghahambing kasi marami tayong natututunan. Marami tayong natututunan pag inihahambing natin kung anong ginagawa natin sa ginagawa ng ibang tao. At doon pwedeng manggaling yung sinasabi kong action guidance. Doon natin pwedeng masabi na, okay, sa paghahambing ko, mas maganda ito. Kaya, yun yung gagawin ko. Right? So, meron akong gabay sa pagkilos mula doon. So, ito yung sinasabi ni Mary Midgley sa papel niya na hindi natin pwedeng iwasan itong pag-iisip tungkol sa iba't ibang nakasanayan sa iba't ibang kultura kasi dito dito lalabas kung paano natin pag-isipan yung tama at mali. Okay, the next point that Midgley makes is that a lot of people who would like to forbid negative judgment of the samurai also want to promote the possibility of praising or appreciating what the samurai Japanese were doing. So in a part of her paper, she shows how one person might defend the practice, how might defend Tsujigiri, right? And these are the reasons she goes through, and I will go through them quickly. First of all, samurai culture exalts discipline and devotion. That's the first thing. So bahagi noon yung pagiging maingat sa mga pamantayan, at saka pag sinabi natin kailangan matalas, malinaw kung ano ibig sabihin ng pagiging matalas ng mga kagamitan na ginagamit natin sa isang mahalagang bagay. Tsaka the samurai, as I said, play a very important role in Japanese society. And if they go into battle and their sword is not sharp enough, and they try to cut somebody in half and they fail just because their sword was not sharp enough, in their culture, that means they put shame on themselves, on their emperor, on their community, and their ancestors. So it's a very bad thing. And they exalt discipline and devotion in protecting the emperor, the community, the ancestors, etc. So their culture puts a premium on these things. And the Japanese did not really put a very high premium on individual lives because they were a collectivist culture. So mas pinahahalagahan nila yung nakabubuti sa nakararami, hindi sa iisa lang. Pag-usapan natin yan ng mas masisinan sa consequentialism o sa utilitarianism. Pero what matters is the well-functioning of the collective instead of like the value of a single individual life. At saka yung pinakamahalagang dahilan na ibinibigay ng mga tao na sinasabi na hindi naman ganun kasama itong Tsujigiri. Wayfarers did not seriously mind being bisected. In principle, they consented to the whole arrangement. Ano ibig sabihin nito? Hindi nangyari na parang may isang samurai bago yung sword niya, naglalakad siya, nakakita siya ng isang taong naglalakad, di niya kilala. Sabi niya, pwede ko ba i-testing sa'yo tong sword na to? So, consent is not something that samurai Japanese will ask. So, there was no like obtaining of consent, may I do this? May I cut you in half? Hindi nangyari yung ganun. Pero ano ibig sabihin itong huling punto ko dito sa slide na to? Ito yun. They had the word for the practice. They had the word for it. They knew that this is one of the things that could happen. And this is part of the reason that except for the samurai, people in that period did not move around. They were not strangers to anybody. They made sure that they stayed with their own village. Because who may not be bisected when there's a new sword? Fellow samurai may not be bisected. Samurai move around a lot. The emperor, of course, cannot be subjected to the testing of a sword. Right? So it's ordinary folk who don't travel often, who may suffer from this kind of death blow. Now, so people lived in usually agricultural towns and villages, and they did not move around a lot, but sometimes they had to send someone to the other village over the mountain to communicate, to ask for something or whatever, and that person knows that he or she runs a danger, that they run the danger of dying from cold, falling off a cliff, being ravaged by animals, or being bisected by a samurai. So ito yung sinasabi na ng defender ng Tsujigiri na alam nila na nangyayari ito. So somehow may consent, right? So yung sinasabi ni Midgley, kung kaya mong hatulan ng positibo yung ginagawa nila, ibig sabihin, pwede ka maghambing. Kaya hindi mo dapat at hindi mo pwede talagang ibawal yun. Comparative efforts are happening, even in this thing that people are saying, don't condemn the samurai. Look, they have reasons for doing what they do, right? So Midge Lee goes over a piece of reasoning where she says the isolating barrier between culture, the moral relativist says, keep to your culture, and they try to block negative judgment, right? But at the same time, they also want to be able to praise other cultures, right? But if there's an isolating barrier, it has to work both ways, right? It has to work both ways. And if you are willing to allow praise, then you must also be able to allow the other thing. If the isolating barrier does not block praise, then it cannot block negative judgment or blame, right? So Midge Lee shows that moral isolationism, moral relativism is illogical or incoherent. That's what she argues for in her paper, right? And one corollary to that is that negative judgment of other cultures is possible. Ang dapat nating itanong, okay, posible na meron tayong negative opinion na hindi magandang pagtingin sa ginagawa ng ibang kultura, ng mga taong hindi kagaya natin. Ang tanong natin ngayon, para saan yun? Para ba maging feeling superior tayo, feeling natin mas magaling at mas mabuti tayo kaysa sa kanila? Para saan yun? Ito yung punto na kailangan nating linawin. Kasi dito, pwedeng mangyari yung mga hindi natin gusto. Yung parang nagiging self-righteous, na parang nagiging hobby, yung paghusga sa ibang tao, na parang wala nang ibang ginagawa kundi gawin yon, nahusgahan yung ibang tao. Right? So what is negative judgment of other cultures and other people's actions for? What is that for? Right? So, Midge Lee tells us that we can judge other cultures and the judgment is negative, right? But only for the purpose of comparison. And we make comparisons to improve our own culture or moral system. So yun yung punto ng pag-iisip kung maganda ba o hindi yung ginagawa ng ibang tao. Kasi gusto ko malaman, gagayahin ko ba yun o hindi? So the point of judgment is action guidance. It's not to feel better about ourselves. It's not to feel superior. Those are things we want to avoid. We will try our best in our class to avoid those things. So ang nakikita natin dito kay Midge Lee, moral judgment involves comparison, and moral judgment is directed toward our own culture and toward our own lives, and made for the purpose of action guidance. Ang punto ay malaman natin kung anong gagawin natin na magkaroon tayo ng gabay sa pagkilos. So we examine and appraise other cultures and moral systems for the sake of figuring out what to do. Yun ang punto kung bakit pinagmumunihan natin, hinihimay natin kung ano yung mga dahilan ng iba't ibang kultura at iba't ibang tao kung bakit ginagawa nila yung ginagawa nila. Right? So, dito yung huling slide natin para sa recording na ito. What is moral judgment and what is it for? Ito yung sagot ni Mary Midge Lee. When we judge something to be good or bad, better or worse than something else, we're taking it as an example to aim at or avoid. Without opinions of this sort, we would have no framework for comparison for our own policy, no chance of profiting by other people's insights or mistakes. Right? So that is why we are studying ethics. So we can make better, more informed judgments, and those judgments are so that we can figure out what to do. Another way of saying that is that we are trying to think better, but right and wrong for the sake of action guidance. So I hope you have learned something from this recording. So that's it for this particular one.